Federal prosecutors in Kentucky say they intend to retry former Louisville Officer Brett Hankison for his role in the 2020 death of Breonna Taylor. A judge declared a mistrial in November after the jury deliberated for several days but could not reach a unanimous decision. Former Officer Brett Hankison fired 10 shots the night of the deadly raid but did not strike anyone. His shots went into Breonna Taylor's apartment and into a neighboring unit where a child was sleeping. This new trial will be the third attempt to prosecute Hankison for his actions on March 13, 2020, during the botched raid that left Breonna Taylor dead. He was acquitted last year on state charges of wanton endangerment for shooting into Breonna Taylor's window and a glass patio door. U.S. District Judge Rebecca Grady Jennings set a tentative trial date for October 2024. And I want to go to Attorney McCoy here first on this. So we remember that State's Attorney General in Louisville, Kentucky, Daniel Cameron, did not prosecute officers for the actual death of Breonna Taylor. Here we see in this case a hung jury, and we see that Officer Brett Hankison is going to be retried. So what are your thoughts on this case from a legal perspective?
So from a legal perspective, I think that we were all dismayed initially at the state level with A.G. Cameron and his decision not to prosecute. Obviously, there was a police action that resulted in the death of Breonna Taylor, and obviously the community wanted some change and at least accountability from the police department in the form of criminal charges, and still we didn't get it. The federal case is an attempt to try to protect the civil rights and try to enforce the fact that her civil rights were in fact violated. The problem, though, is that with this particular officer, if we're saying that the bullets from this particular officer weren't the ones that killed Breonna Taylor, essentially what they are trying to seek is a punishment for his endangerment or what could have happened as a result of him acting in what may be deemed to be a reckless capacity by shooting within a house, shooting, I think, the bullets that traveled through to an adjacent apartment. And it seems like for the last time when they tried to do this at the federal level, the jury was hung on this and declared ultimately a mistrial. We don't know the composition as far as who was for and who was against, but we do know on that jury there was at least one black juror, and that there was a question that was submitted by the jury last time to ask what would happen if they can't reach a unanimous decision. And they were told that, you just keep trying, and they tried and we're at an impasse. So we are hoping that this will be another opportunity for some kind of standard to be established that hopefully will do something to adhere to Breonna Taylor's legacy.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to come back to you with another question, but I want to go to Dr. Avis Jones de Weaver. So, Avis, first of all, this was federal prosecution. We know that the Attorney General, that the Merrick Garland Department of Justice has reinstituted the investigations into the patterns and practices of police departments and has been going after prosecuting police officers as well as prison guards, et cetera. It's totally different than the Donald Trump Department of Justice. What are your thoughts on this decision to retry Officer Hankison?
Well, I'm glad that that is going to happen because it didn't have to. And so I'm really glad that this Justice Department is saying that we are going to keep trying to get justice for Breonna and her family. The fact of the matter is we cannot lose sight of the fact that this was a completely innocent woman. Let's also remember that she was someone who was an essential worker during the pandemic. She was out here doing, saving people's lives. And Here she is trying to sleep in her own home when she is gunned down in a barrage of bullets based on incompetence at minimum, okay? Completely no reason why she should not be alive today. And so the fact that this could happen that the police could act so brazenly around not only her, but as you mentioned, her neighbor and her boyfriend. I mean, it was just a tremendously violent act to make for that to happen and for no one to pay any price for that legally is a tremendous injustice. So I'm so happy that at least there's going to be another attempt to make sure that justice does indeed prevail in this case. Absolutely.
Now, Attorney McCoy, so the narcotics investigation and this attempt to serve a search warrant that ended up taking the life of Breonna Taylor is described as a botched narcotics investigation. And although 7 officers were on the scene to serve the search warrant, only 3 fired their guns. The charges against Officer Hankison were violating Breonna Taylor's civil rights, as well as those of her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, and 3 neighbors. The federal government contended that Officer Hankison willfully used unconstitutional excessive force, while his defense attorneys argued his actions were justified based on his perception that he was saving his fellow officers' lives. When it comes to the federal government, they based upon limitations, they can file charges based upon violating someone's civil rights. Can you talk about, for a minute, the standard that has to be proved, the elements that have to be proved when it comes to violation of civil rights? Because from my understanding, you have to prove willful intent, that someone willfully intended to deprive someone of their civil rights, as opposed to just proving that they did violate someone's civil rights. Can you talk about that for a minute, please?
So what I will say is I am primarily a housing attorney, so this is a little outside of my scope.
Oh, okay.
But ordinarily, when we're dealing with any kind of civil rights case, we're dealing with state action that we believe has created a violation of someone's civil rights. And what we're saying in this case ultimately is the fact that this officer, because we know that he was part of this investigation, part of this attempt to enter and breach into Breonna Taylor's household, and that he also was one of the officers who did, in fact, fire his sidearm into the house. These would constitute violations of her right to be in her house safely, her civil rights. And so I think that ultimately there's going to have to be an assessment of whether or not this particular officer, I'm not sure what the defense's argument has been up to this point, but there's got to be an assessment as to whether or not what he did was reasonable police activity in trying to execute this warrant. And I think that's going to be a very difficult standard to prove.
Okay, absolutely. But at the same time, Avis, if 16.9 million African Americans did not vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, you would not have these prosecutions. You would not have the Department of Justice going after arresting over 1,000 alleged domestic terrorists who tried to overthrow the government, getting plea deals or convictions, and 600 plus of them, also going after prison guards, et cetera, as we've talked about here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And then 150 federal judges confirmed also under Joe Biden as well. Talk about, for a quick minute, how we should proceed when we go into 2024 presidential election and people are comparing one political party to another and what has been accomplished these first 2 or almost 3 years of the Biden-Harris administration.
Right. I think people need to remember that you're not just voting for the individual at the top of the ticket. You're not just voting for the president and vice president, that team. You're voting for everything that happens as a result of the change of an administration. What type of people will they appoint to different positions? What's going to be their policy priorities? What are going to be those policies that they no longer care about or that they want to completely eliminate altogether? You want to think about the broader agenda and compare that when you're making these voting decisions. And so, as you mentioned, the difference between a Joe Biden Department of Justice and a Donald Trump Department of Justice is night and day. People might forget one of the very first things that Donald Trump did when he came into office was to completely defund a program that was in place under the Obama administration that was specifically meant to root out and, in essence, destroy white supremacist organizations.
Yes.
Like, that was one of his first acts as president of the United States. So I wish people would stop romanticizing that period as if it was something that, oh my goodness, that we just like him because he's strong. Okay. Think about what that means. And also think about what happened during his presidency. Now, after he did that, and also I think riled up with the messages in his campaign, we have seen a record increase in the number of white supremacist organizations in this nation. He's making the racists feel very, very comfortable, okay, and aggressive. Isn't any wonder why we're having Karens go out here and shoot people, right? So I'm just saying that the implications of your vote is much bigger than any slogan. It's much bigger than any cute hat, okay? It is about all of the various things that will happen, not to mention Supreme Court justices that will be there for the rest of their freaking lives. And if you think they're going to stop by rolling back abortion rights, I have to tell you, I have a bridge I'd like to sell you, because they're not stopping there. They're going to keep going.
Absolutely. And they were able to repeal Roe versus Wade or do away with Roe versus Wade because of the 3 Supreme Court justices that Donald Trump got confirmed through the U.S. Senate that Mitch McConnell controlled. And those justices came from lists coming from the Heritage Foundation and the Fairless Society. I'm coming to you, Attorney McCoy, to wrap up this segment. But for everybody who's confused, I encourage you hear me talk about this document at whitehouse.gov many times. I'm on here. Fact sheet: the Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black Americans and communities across the country. It's a 36-page document that breaks down how these policies are benefiting the African-American community. Talk for a minute or two, Attorney McCoy, about the importance of federal judges. In the 2016 presidential election, I heard many people who were voting for Donald Trump, many Republicans, say that this election is about the U.S. Supreme Court and the federal bench, and these are lifetime appointments. Donald Trump got 226 federal judges confirmed, and these were judges that came from lists submitted to him from the Heritage Foundation and the Fairless Society. Talk about the importance of this.
So I just wanted to reiterate the fact that voting is important for all of the reasons that you all mentioned. But with federal judges, one of the things that people on the outside of the industry don't always understand is that they are lifetime appointments, and that federal judges wield a vast array of power and oftentimes are going to be appointed because of a political commitment or a position that they have taken historically through the judgments and the orders and verdicts that they have issued along the way. So if you are against some of the social issues that that presidential candidate is running on, the likelihood is that if you do not exercise your right to vote and that person wins, they're going to install judges who are going to share that same viewpoint. And I think we've already seen that happening. On top of that, these judges, because it's a lifetime position, it takes years, usually decades, to get cases up to the Supreme Court to change things. And with a stroke of a pen, those things can change the landscape of the law in general. So it is vastly important for people to be engaged, not just because we say so, but because you need to look around and see what has been the results of your vote up to this point. And I won't even stop at just the federal level. I think that in many ways, state and local politics are even more important, because you need to know who are going to be the people that are going to be leading your society or your community or your state when it comes to many of the powers which the federal government has not reserved for the federal government. So all these things are vastly important, and I think they go kind of unaccounted for just because people don't traditionally see federal judges' names on the ballot.
Absolutely. While I'm a bill on Capitol Hill, we need Schoolhouse Rock 2023 Civics 101. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back. Hotep, everybody. This is Michael Imhotep from the African History Network. Our Kwanzaa Bundle Pack sale is on right now. We have a very exciting promotion for you. Get our bundle pack of 2 online history courses that I teach, as well as my 15 lecture downloadable bundle African History Awakens the African Mind from Mental Death. These are both from me, Michael Imhotep. They're on sale right now for only $100. That's 76% off. My first online history class is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Kemet is one of the original names for Egypt. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles. There's about 100 articles that we cover in the class, over 200 slides that I put together as well. And there are also video clips, including excerpts of interviews I've done with some of our historians and scholars, as well as Runoko Rashidi, Professor James Small, Anthony Browder, Professor Kabahaya Kamene, and Dr. David Imhotep. In the second class that I teach, it's called Black Resistance Movements from the Haitian Revolution, the U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. And we dig in deep and look at history chronologically from 1800 to 1968 and look at what leads to the Civil War taking place. We study the Jim Crow era, the Reconstruction era, 1865 to 1877, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, and the Great Migration, 1915 and 1970, to understand what happened to us after slavery ended, what were the laws and policies put in place to put us where we are today, to understand where we need to go from here. I created both of these classes, created the curriculum, chose the content as well. This sale ends Monday, January 1st, 2024. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You'll see the promotion at the top of the page. As soon as you register, you can start watching the content. You can join us for our next online class live Saturday, December 2nd, 2023, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can watch all of these classes on demand, and even after the course is over with, you don't lose access. Register right now, order right now. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. This sale ends Monday, January 1st, 2024. Also, if you'd like to stop it for information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior is not over till we win Wakanda forever, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.